Hi everyone, it's still me, Amina Jaman, art director of International Filmmaker Festival of New York and moderator of New York Nil Gallery's fifth online festival. I can't wait to talk to Jojin Van Winkle. She's here. Hi Jojin. I'm gonna send you an invite and we'll discuss your photography. Jean? Hi.
Hi,
Hello, how are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Great, nice to see you online and hope to see you live soon. I want to say to our viewers that Jojin is a visual artist, photographer, writer, producer, educator, filmmaker, activist based near Milwaukee who loves to document, write, and travel. That's how you describe yourself. And tell me, who doesn't love to travel, right?
Can't wait to really get back into doing that. It's one of my favorite things. It's so inspiring. I really love to see how other people live in the world, what's going on. I, you know,
Same here.
you feel so alive when I'm, behind the camera and viewing the world through different lenses, as they say.
Yes, and I want to say about your awesome photo project called the Destruction Project. And it's about cars. And I mean, cars in the forest, at the stadium, on the road, and in the field. And my personal favorite photograph of yours is a car in the forest. It's so beautiful. You see destruction, but it doesn't look disgusting, right? It looks beautiful, and the green, leaves on car. It's just incredible, like a painting. How did you make it?
Oh, well, that's also one of my very favorites. That is actually, speaking of traveling, that was taken in Finland. Um,
Wow.
I was on an artist residency there, and it's in a car graveyard, or that's what I call it. And it's got a really funny story. I had been documenting demolition derbies in the United States, and live in the Midwest, like you said, near Milwaukee. And I went on an artist residency where you get to go and live, and this one was unplugged in the middle of Finland. And I went to edit
Mm.
photos and to write. And I went out on a run on the first day I was there. And just down the road, it's like in the middle of the rural Finland, there was a farm that had cars everywhere, and it reminded me of demolition derbies. But I knew they weren't, because they were too clean. And anyway, to make the long story short, it turned out that there were these Jokis drivers, which is kind of like a racing driving in Finland. And
Mhm.
happened to have cars just down the road from where I was staying. And of course, when you have lots of cars, you have to have parts, right? So then they had this car, quote unquote, graveyard, is what like I said, I like to call it. And so what I did was I went and I interviewed them, talked to them, got to know them, went to some races. It was fun. This was in 2019. And then I asked them if I could document their graveyard. And they're
Mhm.
sure, whatever. Yeah, why would you want to do that? Okay. And so I would go like day after day for this over this whole month that I was there, and I would document it in the rain. I would document it in the sun in the morning. I went back at night. I would record the sounds. There were swans that lived nearby,
Wow.
swan sounds. But the forest was so amazing because it was like um, such an old, kind of old, untouched forest, and so
Mhm.
was growing up over all these different kinds of cars. There were cars from Russia, from Finland, from the US, that they had raced and that were now recouping in this.
Mhm.
And so it was really magical. And the light, that's what I just loved. The lighting there was so spectacular at different moments. And it was so quiet. It was the type of thing where at first I had to get used to it because I was like, it kind of felt like you were in a, wait, is this a horror movie? Is something bad going to happen? But it was actually just this beautiful um, forest with these kind of, it's almost like stumbling across an old archaeological finds where these mechanical parts were being then overgrown by nature. And
Hmm.
it was it was a way of like for me as an artist to recenter and kind of rejuvenating, but it was also fascinating. Sort of that it's kind of a love-hate relationship I have with destruction, and it was very serene. So I'm really glad you liked that photo. That's my long story.
I loved it. It's my favorite. There are a few of them, and this is like the best in my opinion, And I love pictures in the nature, and I think that, outside photo shoots are always more beautiful than inside the studio shots because the inside is just okay, but outside you see beautiful nature, and what can be better background than beautiful nature, no matter what you shoot, person, a car, but in the nature, it's so beautiful. And as I said, it's like a painting, or like a movie that was stopped, like a still from a movie.
Yeah.
And speaking of movies, did you enjoy an animated film, The Cars?
Oh, I haven't seen that yet, but I did
You haven't? You should.
see that. I just watched Soul. Have you seen that? It's so good.
Soul? No.
Soul. Yeah, it's got great music. It's set in New York City. It's
I'll check it out.
very,
Soul, right?
very moving
Mhm.
uh, about the soul life, but jazz and yeah, it's really cool.
Oh,
No,
who doesn't love jazz and all that jazz? Right? Soul, uh, pictures and all that jazz. Okay, so tell me, where is easier to work in the forest or at the stadium? You have a picture, of a car and people, sitting at the stadium. You should capture all of them, and sometimes someone ruins the picture. It's like looking somewhere else, so like you can't crop or cut a person. I mean, it's always difficult, in my opinion, when you have like more people in the shot than like a few artists, who are prepared,
oh, that's such a great question. I mean, I guess they both have their charms about them. When I create photos, I don't manipulate them later. Um,
Hmm.
maybe change the size, if you have to change it for different kinds of things. But in other words, I try to capture the color and the light in the moment to be as authentic as I possibly can. Kind of,
You try to manipulate on set, right? So that you
yeah,
don't need to manipulate later.
I try to be present and see what's there. So I think that's a really great question because in the stadium, you have serendipity. You have to be present in the moment. It takes a lot of energy. Like afterwards, I'm starving because you have to really be there and see and what's happening and trust that you're going to find something and also try to be in different locations. It's also kind of dangerous. When the big trucks are going or cars are going around and it's muddy because that's the most fun. And I like it when the natural light is fading and the artificial light is coming up in the stadium. That's really exciting moments too, because then you can see the smoke.
Hmm.
It can be dangerous for the driver, but usually, hopefully, people are safe. But for the photographer or filmmaker, mud is kicked up and flying at you. So you have to figure out where you can be safe, but still get the photo you want. How much danger are you really willing to risk? Um,
Hmm.
how close can you get? Sometimes you have to also navigate in the small venues. People are really nice, it seems like, and they're curious about what you're doing, and they're open to it, and they might ask questions. And some of the what I found is if I went to bigger competitions, what happens is they have all these rules and they have big fencing, and you can't get close, and or it's more complicated. So those are sort of the logistical challenges. It is really exciting, I think, to be around other people and trying to experience it. What I haven't done yet is document the people at the event, and I think that's something in the
Hmm.
future. It's a different kind of like demographic in some ways, or different, especially like rural areas. Like, what is that like? Um, and then the forest. I guess the forest. I'm like looking off into the sunlight. It can be very serene, and it's also you have to be really uh, able to be alone, which many artists, like, we love it, right? I have to say, like, the pandemic is almost an artist's dream come true. Not
Yes.
death and disease and horrible things that are happening to people, but in terms of you have time to be with yourself if you want to. And a lot of us love to do that. So like photographing in nature requires that I usually shoot alone there. So what that's like to be able to feel safe, to be a woman out alone in nature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen work by like Diane Wallen. She's this documentary filmmaker in Canada who like
No, I haven't. I'm gonna check it out.
she went across Canada in a canoe in hiking like 15,000 miles over 500
Wow.
all by herself, you know, amazing. So I guess I bring that up because sometimes I think people might not think about that, but like being alone in nature, how cool is that? We see it, we romanticize about it. But we live as people usually in these very populated areas or around other people. Many people do. And so this idea of being alone in nature in a way shouldn't be something strange for humans, but the way we are
Mm-hmm.
strange. So you have to be comfortable with that. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
fluid between these two spaces, but it requires a different kind of presence, awareness, risk, and also I think with nature, it does also have serendipities because you don't know what's going to happen when you're out there, right? If there's other animals are going to come by, what you're going
Oh, hey, bear, right? Hey there.
to know. Exactly. What am I doing? So, yeah. Um,
Give me a hug, right? Like you see a bear and you're like, oh, give me a hug.
yeah, I don't have pictures with bears yet. Sorry, didn't mean to talk about.
Yes, I think it's easier to focus when you're outside, in the nature, when it's quiet and peaceful, because nothing distracts you, and when you're like, somewhere with a lot of people, it's way harder to focus on your work and harder to work. What about you?
Yeah, it can be because, well, I think when you're around other people, in a way, it's a performance. I don't know if you feel like this
Mhm,
because I know music and singing, and you're like also very versatile in what you do, music videos, you know, all this acting, directing. So when you're around other people creating art, at some level,
mhm,
always a performance. And that doesn't mean I don't mean that that's all inauthentic. It's just that
mhm,
seeing what you're doing. So you need to think about what am I modeling? What am I doing? How am I interacting? And
mhm,
being open to like that. When I say that moment, that what might happen, what you might discover. If you were closed in and only focused on what you're doing, you could miss something fantastical.
mhm,
One of my favorite photographer I love, Sam Abel. He does national
mhm,
photography. I got to meet him many moons ago. And one thing he said was, it wasn't really related to people, but he was talking about photographing. Like you're photographing one thing, but he said,
mhm,
down and see what's behind you because that can
mhm.
be fascinating. And that can be even more spectacular, right? Maybe the light looks really different behind you. And so I think that's the same in a way when you're around other people. Yes, you may not get exactly what you want because someone interrupts you, but maybe you get something different.
Mhm,
Maybe you talk to somebody and it leads you to something you didn't know was available around the corner, you know, on the
mhm.
yeah. Um, but not every artist is like that. I like to. I'm working on trying to be open to that, but it can be challenging. You have somebody who doesn't want you to sit next to them or stand next to them because you're clicking away, right? You get responses that aren't very receptive and warming to the artist's heart, but you know, I guess that's just because we're all different kinds of people, right?
Yes, and it's great. Everyone is unique, and even if you see twins, even they are different, without saying of ordinary non-twins people. So, tell me, where can people see your works in the close future?
Ooh, well, right now you can see I just finished an online artist residency with
Hmm?
program. It's called World of Co. And
Mm-hmm.
collaborate, community, things like that. It's based out of Bulgaria. So if you,
Mm-hmm. Sofia, I was in Sofia. Beautiful, beautiful city.
I want to go there so bad. Anyway, so I just, this online residency, it's like you meet, you talk with other artists, you make your own work. And so I did that over this last fall. And so you can see some of my work there if you go to the World of Co. Um,
Mm-hmm.
exhibition. I have
Mm-hmm.
video work. One is very playful. It's also about centering. It's about in nature. All of the imagery is very nature based or out and about. And then two videos I have are called Corona, or I'm sorry, not Corona. Uh, uh, Karuna. I'm not, which means not coronavirus, and they're meditations and they're around walks when I take walks. But all of the imagery is created into these Rorschach effects where everything comes together, kind of like if anybody's seen Sip My Ocean, which is by Pipoletti Rist, and she's a video artist. So I really love her work. She was years ago. She was doing some like Rorschach kind of videos, and I go like this because I mirrored imagery. So you can see my work there right now. That's the freshest stuff off the press, I would say. Also my
Yeah, that's awesome.
so you can check that out. I've got work and I've had work in a bunch of other different festivals, photography festivals around the country lately, and also internationally too, Italy, and what did I say, UK, China, Singapore, uh, Lisbon, just different places. So that's been luckily
Portugal, cool.
cool. So those are sort of some of my newest things that are going on. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yes, and tell me, who is your biggest inspiration?
oh my goodness. Okay, so I don't think there's ever any one right answer for that.
Name a few.
I guess um, during this pandemic, I have revisited some of the films that have inspired me over time. And so I'm not sure how many of you out there have watched this. It's called Baraka, and it's
Mm-hmm.
Rick, and he's
Mm-hmm.
a filmmaker who basically ignited time lapse cinematography around the world. And he did this film, Baraka, that this is back in the early 90s. So if anybody can imagine when we didn't have the internet, trying to see basically what's going on around the world in one day. Not really in one day, but it kind of goes from sunrise to sunset around the world, and it's people and interacting in the world around them. It's so beautiful, and it has so much to do with light. And I think that work has become a paramount, which because I'm trying not to say seminal anymore, but like a paramount focus, or it's been um, I I don't know if it's a hallmark, but something is really fundamental to the foundation of how I think about the world, think about my place in the world as an artist, and the fact that there's all these other people living out there, their lives at the same time. And so now with Instagram, like here we are live, this seems very normal, but at that time that was earth shattering to me. It's the only film that I've watched in the theater. When I finished it, I bought another ticket and I went back in and watched it again. And
Wow.
like,
That's how good it is.
yeah, it was so beautiful. I highly Raka. And he's done other films that are really interesting too, but that was just incredible. And I've never met him, would love to sometime, if anybody knows him.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I think that would be, if I had to pick somebody today, that would be who it would.
Mhm. And tell me more about your work as an activist.
Oh, well, my work as an activist, right now it's very centered around the college that I teach at. I teach at
Hmm.
which is located in Kenosha, Wisconsin, right along the shores of Lake Michigan. And I'm really active in basically several different ways, trying to promote more equity and inclusion on our campus and beyond. So like one of the things pre-pandemic, I had gotten a faculty grant to work on equity and inclusion within my color photography class, which is a digital
Mm-hmm.
class. We call it color photography, but it's digital photography in the art department. And so I worked with students, and we were doing projects based on what is community, and thinking
Mm-hmm.
and having them document their communities they were interested in. So students did everything from LGBTQ related communities having to do with their family history, their racial history, their other ways in which they identify as individuals. Because I think in college that's still a very, very core part of like figuring out who you are, where do you stand, what makes you you, what are you interested in, and they did some amazing work. One of my students, Azu Wingham, he created a documentary series about his grandfather, who
Mm-hmm.
was from Nigeria originally.
Mm-hmm.
Documented him while his family was taking care of his grandfather as he was going through dementia.
Mm-hmm.
It's so moving, and we got those photographs. His grandfather was interested in photography or fashion and
Mm-hmm.
Chicago and stuff, and it was so the student is also interested in fashion. So what we did was I was able to get those photos in our intercultural center, and
Mm-hmm.
this year, if anybody's around, come check them out. They look really cool, and they're beautiful and so moving. And so what I've been trying to do is be an activist where I am as I can be as an educator, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important. And it's also, I think, part of being an activist in that educational system is standing up for a variety of things that our students might need. Another thing I
Mm-hmm.
this program called the RISE program. It's an anti-racism program. So I'm an equity.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, working with students, their first years, talking with them about their what we call intercultural competency. Like how can you be aware of other people? And it doesn't have to be only centered on race. We all have different kinds of cultures, right? That we
Mm-hmm.
identify with, that we come from, that we want to be part of. And so, what I think is fantastic about that is that we start to have conversations with first year students who are 18 and 19, if they're traditional age students, maybe 20.
Mm-hmm.
And how can they, who are they, how do they want to be involved in our community and making our community more inclusive? Our school
Mm-hmm.
was a primarily white institution in its founding. It's over 150 years old. And so we've been working together to try to have more diversity, not only in our students and our faculty and our staff, because we want to represent the world that we all live in, and which is diverse and interesting and fascinating. So those are the ways I'm an activist now. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I've done work related to land rights and which in Liberia, which is in West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done I've I've been on the U.S. side of that, and so what I've done was been cinematographer for a couple different projects and also an associate producer. So I'm also very interested in conversations about ways in which to change land rights and recognition of that for all peoples. And I think it's really important because the U.S. is a country, right, that really is a visitor, a visitor on native lands. And so it's something that we haven't quite reckoned with, I think, completely in the United States. And so it's something that we can continue to do to recognize native spaces, and also that we are visitors. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we participate in this contemporary world, and what does that mean? And so I think land rights also have to do, I don't mean ownership, but the recognition that our relationship to the land is a relationship to the earth. So I hope that doesn't also
Mm-hmm.
woo woo, but those are the ways in which so far in my life I've been trying to be an activist as well as a artist. um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't
A true artist is always an activist, through your work. you show, you know, your position, your opinion, right? It's not just talent. Talent is obvious, right? But what do you want to say? What's your message? It should be inspiring. And I love that, uh, you know, when you work with students, you help them communicate with each other and learn more about each other's cultures, and uh, that will bring peace and understanding. And it's very, very important. If we have peace, there is a chance for love, right? And if there is respect, there is no problem, and anyone, can understand that, right? They understand each other, they work with each other without any prejudices. And that's when magic happens, in life and in art. That's how it should be. And I personally think that a true artist must inspire and must talk on social issues, just as Michael Jackson did in his brilliant music, in his fantastic songs and music videos. It was uniting people, of all backgrounds, races, religions, so of all ages. And we miss that today. We don't have artists like him that talk on something important. So not just like, dance, sing, but, sing about something important. So the lyrics are very important. And what do you want to say through your art? Even if it's a photography without words, right? So, but the picture says uh, something to you, right? When you look at it, the painting says something to you. So it's really important. So I really admire your work as an educator. It's as important as your work in photography, or in films, or as a writer. So I wish you best of luck, and I wish I was your student. So I could, like, feel free and respected while I'm studying, and it's really, really important. I personally think that there must be a subject at schools, as world culture, and people should learn about every religion, so that they are aware, about everything that exists, and have respect for everything, right? So if you know about the culture, you're not afraid of culture anymore, right? If you know about literature of your culture, right? Or like films, anything, you are an educated person, and you'll never hate someone because he's different. Being different doesn't mean being bad, it means being different. Just meet the person, and you'll never have any problems. So it's really important.
So well said. Yeah,
Thanks.
I agree with so much of what you were saying. I mean, I think some of the reasons, I mean, we as artists, we make art for a lot of different reasons. One, it's, fun. In a way, it's kind of like a cool addiction because it gives you, endorphins, and it engages you. It lets you speak about things maybe that you can't always say in certain places. It lets you draw attention to subjects you want to draw attention to or highlight, things that fascinate you. It's kind of like being a scientist too, in that sense of you're studying and revealing things in the world and asking questions for your art. I also really agree with you. I think in terms of one of the great things, I do think there are artists out there that are making work that's about compassion and investigating. I mean, just like Isaac Julian, he's this fantastic video artist that became a filmmaker known around the world now. He's from the UK. Also, we have people that are artists that are making impacts in the ways in which they, through moving image and still image, in subject matters, and maybe they're not maybe always as well known as certain pop culture folks, but many there. I do think there's many people out there trying to make change through their
Hmm.
and do. And I do think that it takes kind of like a lifetime. To me, the arts are a vocation. It's something that you need to spend time with, you need to honor, because it takes a while to hear your own voice, and it takes a
Hmm.
cultivate an understanding of what it is that you can bring, not just to the table, but that you can bring for change, for fun, for ways of which to see the world. And I do think that all of those kinds of things are strategies to create peace. And they may be maybe peace through humor to make people laugh, right? It may be peace by drawing
Absolutely.
attention to topics. Um, but I do think the more you are willing to hear and see what other people, um, how they experience the world, authentically, I think that that opens you up to your own, and that allows you to also express yourself authentically, and that
Mm-hmm.
lets you live, because this is all we.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about like hearing, not just listening to someone. You should hear what other person says, and then, you'll understand the person and there'll be no problem at all. So thank you very much, Jojin, for this wonderful conversation. I congratulate you on selection, and New York Neil Gallery is honored to have your photography in our online global event and can't wait to see your other works live at the galleries around the globe. So you are a rock star on the road, taking pictures and traveling with your world tour. So hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be part of your gallery, the New York Nil Gallery exhibition, and I'm really excited to have this time to talk with you and to meet you. You're extraordinary.
Yes,
Thank you.
same here. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you. That was Jojin Van Winkle, a filmmaker and educator, visual artist, photographer, writer, and a beautiful inside and outside person. Bye, guys. We'll continue in 5 minutes.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.